Okay, hello and welcome to today's webcast on BI software. This is the first in a three-part series presented by Jet Reports with the theme of getting real about business intelligence. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and I'm really glad to be kicking things off today with our presenter, John Esch. John is Vice President of BI Sales at Jet Reports, and he's a BI veteran who writes and speaks frequently on the topic. John, we're happy to have you back, and before I hand off control, let me just add that we do invite you in our audience to ask questions today. You can use the Q&A block that you should see to the right of the slides. So without further delay, let me hand things off to our presenter, John Esch.
Thank you, Jason. Let me get things set up here, and we should be sharing something. Jason, you want to tell me if you see that I'm sharing my desktop?
Yeah, we now see your desktop.
Okay, let me get rid of this irritating thing that we have here floating around. All right, so welcome everybody. My name is in fact John Esch, and I'm the Vice President of Business Intelligence for Jet Reports. And it is also true that this is the first in a three-part series on BI, and it's going to span 3 days, and we're going to talk about a few different topics. This first one, as you see on your screen there, you're doing it wrong, right? Why software won't solve your business intelligence problem. Now, I'll tell you from the outset that I have taken some flack for this title. Internally, at least, my colleagues are telling me that I sound like some, self-help guru, shock therapy guy from the 70s. And I'm going to defend that title, though, because it's I put it up there because I have been hearing now for years BI vendors, and I'm one of them, I know, but stay with me, BI vendors talking about nothing but software. You look at how great my software is, and look at how flashy it is. And I think that they're just missing the point, because as we'll see as we go through this presentation, that BI is really much more about software, much more than just software. There's a lot of things around software that you need to pay attention to in when you're starting off in a BI project. And I'm going to move my slide here. And to kind of set that stage a little bit, let me just talk briefly about Jet Reports. We don't like to talk about ourselves too much at Jet Reports, but this is a relevant slide because we've been around forever. I think we're going on 15 years now, and we have 10,000 clients around the world and 100,000 users. And I mentioned those particular statistics because you just, if this sounds like bragging, I'm sorry, but you just don't get to that position unless your products work and your companies work well with the people that you sell those products to. So longevity there is an important thing. But again, we don't like to belabor this point. We don't like to talk about ourselves too much. We like to talk about what we love, which is data. We're really, at our core, a data management company. And what we love to do is we love to help people get control of their data and use it to do all the things that data is supposed to be done, which is essentially, let's make better decisions, let's build a better company. So as we get started here, you know that I can't see everybody, but if you think this is what BI software is, if you think this is what business intelligence is, kind of raise your hand. I can't see you, but it's kind of fun to raise your hand in your office, right? Or maybe this looks like BI to you, or maybe that looks like BI to you. I mean, this is really kind of what I think the first time BI gets mentioned, this is what pops into people's minds, flashy charts and great graphics. Now, I will tell you that this is the end result of business intelligence. And it is important because this is what we call the front end stuff. This is how the business users interact with the data. And it's really important. One of our big premises here is that people need to see data, the data that they need to do their jobs in the way that they can do it best at the time that they need to see it. So this front end stuff is important. But in reality, this is really what business intelligence is. So this thing, this ugly looking thing on the right, that's a data model. We actually call that one a star schema. And this is what your front end sits on. This is how your data is structured so that you can get those good-looking charts and graphs. And it's really the key to business intelligence is how are we going to take all that data out of the ERP or the other systems that you might have, which are transactional systems. They're designed to take stuff in and churn it around and enforce a process. How are we going to take that and put it into a format that lets us look at it so that we can start making decisions on it? So again, software can give you this part, right? This is the data visualization stuff. And there's lots of good data visualization tools and methodologies out there. At JET, we have about 3 of them. Right? So we're believers in data visualization. We also partner with some companies that do nothing but data visualization. But if you think about it, what this is, what these charts that you see on your screen are, is really just a piece of software that sits on top of that data model that I showed you earlier. And so if that data model is no good, if the numbers aren't right, or if they're not structured in a way that makes sense to your processes, then these charts are not going to be any good either. And the worst case scenario there is that you have information out there that's not true, it's not validated, doesn't have integrity, and people start making decisions on bad information. Okay, software also can give you this. In fact, this little chart is a platform that shows some of the individual tools that we use to move data around. You take it from the ERP, which is what we call an OLTP, Online Transactional Processing Form, to some form of analytical processing. So we combine the data from various sources, as you see there, MRI, budgets, timesheets, maybe it's your ERP like AX or any other dynamics. And then we structure it so that it makes sense. And this is really what we excel in at JET. This is data warehousing software, right? This is data management software, to be more precise. But I will tell you that no amount of software, nothing can give you this stuff, right? This is, again, your data model and how it comes together. What this is really at its core, it's reams and reams of institutional knowledge. This is how do we do business? Right? Why do we need to look at data this way instead of that way? So what are our reporting needs? We have knowledge of that, and it ends up in this format that you see on the screen. Who needs to see what information in which format? Okay, so this is the intricacies of your business that really tell you how you need to see that data. We actually call them user stories, and I'll talk a little bit about user stories later, but I can tell you one thing up front is that user stories, requirements, data structures, they do not get created by software. All right, I've got a few more examples here. There we go. So this chart, I found this little gem of a chart. I love it in a Deloitte white paper. And you see, I liked that white paper so much that I put a link to it in the bottom of the slide, and I can get you that link if you don't have to scribble it down, so don't worry. But if you look at this wheel, you see with business intelligence in the middle, and then you have all the different kind of business functions around the edge. And you note that technology is really only about one of these 9 sections. And I took out the data architecture there. I'm not really counting that one because it doesn't count because it's already there. You know, you already have some sort of data architecture. It's already there. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit. But what this implies is that building an effective BI strategy, completing an effective BI initiative, having an effective BI project on premise at your place requires a conscious approach. It requires a blending of all these enterprise resources that you see around the outside of the wheel to deliver a predictable and complete and consistent, reliable, and timely source of information that is going to deliver on the promise of BI. And kind of a little side note here is that I always say that, if you think about this conscious blending of approach, business intelligence is not really about creating that one dashboard or that one report. Yeah, those things are important, and you need those dashboards, you need those operational reports, and you need your financial reports. But really what business intelligence is about creating a better process for getting at information. So what's a better process for building those reports and for having the right data feed the underlying structure of that report and for distributing those reports? That's what business intelligence is about. It's much more holistic than just a fancy pie chart. Oh, and I forgot to warn you. So at the beginning of the year, I watched a web seminar on how to give better web seminars. And they told me to put humor into your presentation. And I'm not the funniest guy in the world. Jason will tell you that. So I had to rely on cartoons, right? So this one is about dashboards filtering out bad news, right? And so this is, what I was talking about earlier about all the dashboards and the charts and focusing on that one, sales dashboard that you might need. It's really an easy mistake to make because you can get dazzled by that flashy stuff. And we all just got back from Convergence. And that expo floor, I mean, it will make you dizzy. There are all sorts of great looking, colorful dashboards out there. But what nobody really wants to talk about is what happens after you buy that software. And that's what we do here at JET, and we do hundreds of BI implementations each year. And we've been doing that for a while, as I said. A huge percentage of our clients are still active with us. And so I'm going to belabor this point, I think. You just don't get to that place by slinging software. Because just slinging software, that just doesn't work long term. People start to leave you. We believe in talking to people about their data and what they need it to do for them. Then, when the situation calls for it, we introduce an appropriate piece of software and then wrap that around the data needs. So let me tell you about 4 or 5 other beliefs that underlie the way that we go about our business. So here's the first one. BI is not a technology. Right? Again, easy mistake to make. Now, technology enables business intelligence, but it just should not be the focus of it. The focus should be on what data is going to be used, how it is going to be combined, and then how your data consumer is going to use it. And at the very least, I can promise you this, you will not be able to plunk money down on a piece of software and magically be transported into a useful BI environment. And I say that because some people are actually going to tell you this, and I don't want you to get caught in that trap. And it's an easy trap to get caught in because, it's fun. I mean, look, dashboard, we all love software. Right? We all love software. I'm in the software business, and I love it. I love seeing it. I love, geeking out to it, and it's fun. But, don't get caught in that trap. Instead, I urge you to ask the question, how is all this technology going to help me get my data into people's hands? And I don't mean what features are there to help or what buttons can I push. What I mean is, how does this technology help me with the non-technology related issues? For example, is it going to help me gather requirements better? Can it help me deliver results in a way that they can be validated quickly instead of taking, testing cycles that span 3 weeks? How are all those buttons and knobs that I'm kind of enamored with, how are they actually going to help me make this BI initiative that I've maybe staked my reputation on, how is it going to help me make that a success? Number 2 is, unless I am talking from a technical perspective, I don't even like to call business intelligence a framework or a platform. So Amazon Web Services, Azure, these are platforms, right? Your IT hardware that you have in your company, that's a framework. I think the term for BI is business intelligence environment, BI environment. I think that's better because, third belief here, BI is really about understanding which metrics are meaningful to your business, which ones are going to reveal the critical aspects, and which ones are going to drive action or allow for more accurate decisions. Remember that what we're going for here is a better process for making better decisions. So BI environment, I like that better. It's a way to engage with your data. Here's another one, and this one is an interesting one, and there's some confusion around this. BI is not ERP. They're not the same. They shouldn't be treated as such. I think one of the reasons, especially in the dynamics world that we live in, one of the reasons why this comes up is because very often the same people who sold us our ERP system are the ones that we initially go to start talking about business intelligence. And they're just 2 different worlds, right? Because ERP is an enterprise-wide application. It's designed to create and enforce process and workflow, among other things. But the requirements are rigid in an ERP, and they're somewhat static. You don't want them to change too much. That means the implementation is necessarily a long and involved process. business intelligence is different because it's designed to take those data points that are generated from that rigid system and transform them into what I call actionable analytics. Sounds like kind of a buzzword. I don't necessarily like using it, but I can't think of a better one. Actionable analytics. What I'm looking at numbers, can I take action on these? That's what's important. So the requirements for that stuff are flexible, and they are guaranteed to change frequently. Your business is going to change. BI is designed to model what's going on in your business. So BI needs to be able to change, and so the requirements that you built 6 months ago might not be worth anything today. That means that implementation of business intelligence should be quick, not like ERP, and it should be designed to handle the dynamic nature of what's going on in your business sort of day-to-day, week-to-week. Okay, there's no one-size-fits-all BI solution. Every company's activities are unique, and so the way that they handle their data needs to be unique as well. Again, we've got 10,000 of clients, and I mean, I don't know if we have any 2 of them that are really doing things the same way, even on simple things like how they manage a chart of accounts or how they flow a transaction into their GL. But what you need to understand for your own purposes is how are we going to get the data set up so that we know how sales are trending, so that we can see what's driving those sales. And then how does that affect inventory cost? How do salespeople and vendors and warehouse locations all contribute to the mix? Business intelligence needs to be simple and flexible in order to react to all that variability. Okay, so that's our set of beliefs. That's what underlies the way that we go and do business. And as you know, we are a software vendor, and at some point, you're going to have to buy or at least use software. And so what happens after that? Now, I think this is a very smart question to ask. And I don't hear it asked very often, but I want to urge you to ask this question as well as the other one. Let's hold off on this for just a second because I don't think it's necessarily the first one you should ask. I'm going to get real fundamental, and let's talk about the first one, which is, do we really need the software for this? Do we really need business intelligence? Here's my next cartoon here, right? And so that question, if you're at this stage of thinking and learning about BI, I think that question is probably a pretty easy one to answer. And we need reporting, and we need analytics, and we need ad hoc capabilities against our data. I can make a case for mobile access, especially now. And you know what? I want some of those fancy dashboards. Dashboards are fun, right? Everybody loves a good dashboard. And so the answer is typically yes to this. Do we need software or not? Yes, we do. Okay. Yes, we need business intelligence. Yes, we need all that ad hoc stuff. Now, once you have agreement internally for building a BI environment, then you need to start thinking about what kind of BI environment you want, and this is where it starts to get hard and a little confusing. So we at JET, we recently participated in an RFP for a large BI project, and this question appeared. It's actually question 7.10. I remember it well because I was impressed with it. It was actually the first time that I had seen it asked in an RFP. And to me, it clearly came from the mind of someone who understood BI. And the reason why is that the question doesn't relate to software at all. It's not asking about software. It talks about how can I be successful when I'm using software. So the question is not about software, and my answer was not about software either. My answer is these 4 things. Again, software is important. You have to have software that works. Again, that's why you want to go with a reputable company. But I think that software that works and your reputation as a vendor, that's what I am, I think that's the price of entry into the conversation about a serious BI project. So you should have a confidence level. They should be able to show you some stuff, and that you should just clear that off, and let's start clear off the technology questions, and let's start talking about how we're actually going to use that software to make a difference. Okay, so, and we're going to talk about how we approach software just a little bit later. But again, from my experience and from hundreds of BI projects, says that once that software hurdle has been cleared, then these 4 things, vision, communication, proper success criteria, and project management, these are the most important things. And we're going to go through them here, all 4 of them. So vision is the first one. So the business, your organization, it must have or it must develop to some level a clear vision of what it is trying to achieve with business intelligence. And I always say, let's start with organizational goals. Again, let's start with the fundamentals here. What are our strategic goals? How do we achieve those goals with our tactics? Right? How do we do things in an operational manner to make the tactics work to achieve our strategic goals? BI strategy should lay out how all decision makers are going to be empowered to fulfill their roles better and achieve these goals easier and quicker. Remember, it's about a better process for making decisions. So specifically, what information does each of them need to make a better informed decision as a part of their daily work experience? So in terms of vision, this kind of means, so what information are we going to use? Are we going to pull stuff in from every single one of our systems? Fine if you need to, but let's make sure we understand why. And then how are you going to use that? How are you going to structure it? Are you going to put it into a data warehouse? Are you going to give people ad hoc access to it? How are you going to put security around it? What is it supposed to achieve? Right? That's vision. But vision doesn't always exist in its fullest context before the start of a BI project, and that's okay, right? Because vision is a very hard thing to come up with. But I will stress, and this is, again, one of the things we do at JET, because we do a lot of this, is the business and the BI delivery team, sometimes that's us, sometimes that's your partner, sometimes it's a third-party consultant. The business folks and the BI delivery team need to work together so that the ideas of the business are illuminated and strengthened by that interaction, partnership. It's kind of our opinion that the BI delivery team, this is because we're experts at it, it's what we do all day, the BI delivery team is partly responsible for vision and for clarifying or enhancing it or even creating it where appropriate. This is a little bit of what I was talking about when I was urging you to ask questions about the non-technology parts of the technology. It's like, does the way we are going to end up using this piece of software, does it fit our processes? Are we going to have to make a radical change that no one's going to be able to pull off in a year? Is there something in there, in this technology, that is going to help me establish vision? Those are the kind of questions you want to be asking. Here's this next one. So again, just see it all the time, right? A combination of poor communication between the IT department and the business users. Sometimes the failure to ask the right questions or to think about the real needs of the business means that most BI projects fail to deliver. So this is from a Gartner study that I read. Yeah, there's a link there to this Gartner study. It's a good one too. What they say, it's awful. 70 to 80% of BI projects fail. And it's a scary statistic, but I'll tell you this, business intelligence is not some crystal ball that pops out the right answer. You can't just plug in software and boom, out comes the answer. It's really crucial to understand what business you're in, where the sensitivities lie, which people can do the most about those sensitivities, and then what exactly do those people need to see. So Gartner says in the study that many of the questions that businesses need to answer in a successful BI project are psychological and sociological, not technical ones. So in a sense, you need to think like an anthropologist for this exercise. And I say if you invite the right people to the table, then the exercise is more like simple information gathering rather than an interrogation. Right? And so remember that, psychological and sociological, not technical questions, that's what helps. Yeah, this is Gartner saying this, by the way, it's not me. It's not me, I just believe it as well. All right, so communication. The next one is define success criteria. So clear success criteria needs to be agreed upon between the business and the BI delivery team, or else everything just goes haywire. Right? Here's the other thing about defined metrics is that when you have them and they're clear and everybody agrees on them, then that generates momentum for the project because it establishes these little near-term goals with measurable features like, okay, specific numbers or delivery dates, right? We want these 5 reports developed in the next 2 weeks, and here's our delivery date for that, right? Let's make sure we have some achievable, let's make sure we know what constitutes success, and let's make sure those are reasonable and achievable. And it's funny about when you have a clearly defined set of success criteria, this indicates that a clear vision exists and that proper planning and communication is taking place, and scope creep is being avoided all these things kind of come in a gang, right? They all sort of work together. I think this is my last one. So project management is another important part. I think it's an underappreciated one. And when I say project management, I'm not talking in the technical sense, where somebody walks around with Microsoft Project and beats people up over the deadlines. Oh, that's kind of important sometimes, necessary evil. But it's really the question is the breadth and the depth of the project that you're embarking on being managed properly? So are those success criteria that I just talked about, are they achievable given the data that you have? Make sure you know that or don't set them. Are they achievable in a reasonable time frame? And, are they useful to the business? Or did someone in the ivory tower just come up with them? Again, the BI delivery team, I think, often has responsibility for managing this. And the effort has the benefit of allowing the entire project team, so that's the delivery folks and the business side, to then know and measure the following things. So know and measure that what is being asked for is being delivered, right? That deliverables are coming in a timely manner, and that data can be validated and is accurate. So those are, I think, the main components. And again, there's not a lot of technology built in there, but it's vision, it's communication, it's the right success criteria. And then it's, project management. Sometimes I like to say, hey, did we start out right on this thing? Right? Did we have all these things coming before? Do we have the right vision? Did we set the right success criteria? Did we do that in such a way that we can actually manage this to success? Okay, now stay with me as I switch gears and completely contradict myself and talk about software. Right? I do this, or at least I'm going to introduce a paradox in here. There's our vocabulary lesson for the day, folks, a paradox. I think I'm introducing a paradox rather than contradicting myself. I hope so anyway. But either way, I'm doing this because, remember, at some point, you're going to have to buy or at least use a piece of software. And so the paradox here is that even while I don't think that software is the lone answer to a BI problem, it certainly can help. So in a second, I'm going to introduce the concept that we work with here at JET. It's called Data Warehouse Automation Software. And I'm going to explain how it enables a better approach to building business intelligence. First, bear with me, because data warehouses are funny things, right? Remember how I talked about a business intelligence project needing to model your business, and your business is always going to change. You're always going to hire new salespeople or introduce new products. You're going to have new warehouse locations, acquire a company, whatever it might be. Very often, this is truism that you see in the middle of the screen comes out, that data warehouse designs are out of date even while they're being built. And I always say that the trick to buying software is, this will come as no surprise, is not to buy it because it looks shiny or flashy, but rather go about it this way. First and foremost, understand your needs fully, and then find the software that best fits those needs. It sounds simple, like and intuitive, but you would be surprised at how often this doesn't happen. Understand your needs fully, and then find the software that fits those needs, rather than the other way around, which is getting enamored with a piece of software and then trying to see if it's going to work for you. Do it the other way, right? The thing about business intelligence projects is that your needs, they're always going to be changing. It's like that old saying that we have, that no plan survives contact with the enemy. To put it into BI terms, no data warehouse survives contact with business users. And even, here's the ugly truth, even if you have your needs mapped out, users are almost instantly going to want access to new data sources. They're going to want to see that data combined differently. Strategy and tactics are going to change, requiring you to change the way that you look at your data. And this is actually a good thing. It means that you have a thriving, healthy business. That means you have a thriving, healthy set of users that are looking at a thriving, healthy data model. But all these things are going to pop into new competitors, data that you thought was available, but that's corrupted for some reason. You've got new staff. They need to be trained, and they're going to have new ideas. The one I like best is, in another Gartner statistic, I hesitate to quote it because I don't know the exact numbers, but I think what it is 45% of the changes in your data warehouse in the first year of a BI project come from end user requests, and a lot of those are because you're adding new people. And that's one reason. you're adding new people and they come in and they have a different vision, so they want to see their data a different way. The other reason is that because the data is getting used and the system starts to bed in a little bit and people get more creative with the way that they're using it, and that drives more data needs. These are really good things. You want this to happen. But the point is that that data warehouse is going to change. And in fact, I always say that every single data warehouse is a prototype. It's always in development. The next version of it is going to be built on the concepts that were successful in the previous version, and everything should be getting better each time. Okay, so what does that mean? A hint as to what data warehouse automation is it's a faster, more flexible way of building a data warehouse. And that can be contrasted with kind of the old way of building a data warehouse. A thing about data, which is what you see on the slide here, which is what is sometimes called waterfall software development or software development lifecycle. It has a bunch of different names, been used forever, like maybe 40 years. It started with a big company, NASA, I think, was the first one that really sort of popularized this. But here's the problem with the data warehouse, is that they, and data warehousing software, the data warehouse is the most time-consuming and laborious and error-prone thing in the BI world to produce. One reason for that is due to the huge amounts of handwritten code that a data warehouse requires. So, and they in the past, they've sort of tended to force a certain development methodology onto the dev team. And one of the reasons for that is that it's so time consuming and it's so, labor intensive that a company ends up spending a lot of money on it, a lot of money and resources and time. And there's this intense pressure to get it right the first time. And I'm going to say that, getting it right the first time is not really what you're after, because it's kind of never going to happen. Right? What we say is you need to be, we use the term iterative about it. You need to deliver results fast, and you need to deliver them often. And you need to let people say, yes, that's right, no, that's wrong, go change it, or we like that, let's keep that one. Okay? I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that a waterfall or software development lifecycle methodology, I'm saying it's totally useless for building BI projects, and I think it's the main reason why so many fail. This is where you hear those nightmare stories of the 18-month BI implementation that cost $500,000, went way over budget, and nobody got what they wanted, and everybody's mad. So why does this happen, you ask? Why is waterfall development not good? The simple answer is it just takes too long. Right? People are trying to get it right the first time. They're scared of the results. And the business, what's going on in your business, it quickly outpaces the development effort. And here's kind of what happens. You'll buy software, a team of consultants will descend on your company, and it starts gathering requirements. What happens after these requirements are gathered is that they all get locked down. No changes are allowed at this point, because that development time is very expensive, and if you change things, and that's going to take more time, it's going to cost even more money. Again, that dev team, they're terrified, right? They want to get it right the first time. They don't want to waste any money. And that's a problem all by itself, because nobody really knows what the potential of a data warehouse, or what the potential of the data is, until you see it in a data warehouse. Right? And until you can have access to it and manipulate it and say, that doesn't look right, let's go test it. You can't really do that with data in its raw state. You have to gin it up a little bit in a data warehouse, and then you can start seeing it. And if that takes 6 months to get to that point, and then the data is not right, then you just wasted 6 months. And so back to this team of consultants, right? They've gathered requirements, they've locked down the requirements, then they go off and they try to build the business intelligence environment that they think that they heard the business users tell them they needed. Again, involves writing tons and tons of code, and it takes forever. IDC, in a recent report, said that it takes 5 months for a BI delivery team to deliver its first BI artifact. So that means its first dashboard or its first AR aging report. It's 5 months. So finally, after 5 months, they come back and they deliver something. But remember, now it's 5 months later. And so one of two things is about to happen. Either the thing that they deliver is wrong, the AR aging report is not right, it's wrong, and all that time and effort was wasted and a big redevelopment effort happens, or the thing that they deliver is exactly what you want, but you wanted it 5 months ago, and now time has passed, and things have changed, and it's really no longer relevant. So then you have this unpleasant decision to make. Do you live with that subpar reporting environment, the AR report that's not right because you don't do it that way anymore? Or do you spend more money and more time with your fingers crossed and hope that it comes out better the next time? All right, here we go, data warehouse automation, sometimes called DWA. So it's the massive effort it takes to write all that code combined with the fickle nature of business requirements that kind of causes all this problem. It's sort of the perfect storm of just a lot of effort and a lot of time, and then something, your data needs are flexible as we've discussed. That was the only way to build BI until recently. And so let me introduce this new concept, data warehouse automation. I think I have, yes I do, another cartoon on automation, right? So DWA, right, as you chuckle over the cartoon, I'll explain what DWA is. It kind of sounds like a new buzzword, but stay with me because it's, at its core, what data warehouse automation is, it's a faster, better, and cheaper way to build a data warehouse. So the idea behind it is to automate each part of that data warehouse lifecycle, that error-prone, laborious lifecycle that can be automated. And there's a lot of stuff in there that can be automated. The benefit of doing this is that the project team can focus on the parts of the project that require more intellectual input than raw technological horsepower. So I think we're going back to that Gartner statement now, which is the things you need to worry about are psychological and sociological. Let's take the technology out. Let's automate what we can. Let's focus on the things that really take some brain power. So data warehouse automation does this by minimizing the manual code writing that has to go on and automating all those repetitive and labor-intensive tasks normally associated with a data warehousing effort. And so here's the benefits. Simply put, we cut costs and we save time and we deliver what we ask for. And in business, that's really all anybody cares about. Our CEO says this. He'll say, people are only going to do business with you if you can make them money, save them money, or save them time. And I think that's just kind of what business is. That's the bottom line there. That's what business is all about. And so DWA, cut costs, it save times. What happens is that you can change your data warehouse at any time with a simple drag and drop procedure. You don't have to manually write all this code. The code is going to get generated in the background. And if you want to see this in action, come to my session on Thursday. I'm actually going to break with form and demo some actual software, and I'm going to show you exactly what happens when we do DWA, and I'm going to show you the speed that it takes. But the point there, when I talk about how easily data warehouses can be changed and manipulated and added to, is that the business users and the IT folks, the development team, get to create this shared understanding of what needs to be built. I mean, sometimes we'll sit with a set of business users and they'll tell us what they want, and we will do it right there in the room. And we will have them look at the results in some front end, and we'll say, is this right? And they'll say, no, it's not, because we need the following things. And we will add it right then as they're talking. Okay, that's a shared understanding. That is a flexible data warehouse right there. That's getting your business needs out of your data and into the hands of the people that are going to make a difference with it. Okay, so how does it happen? I bled over a little bit into this, but you can think of Jet Report's DWA tool, and we call it the Jet Data Manager, as a code-generating machine. And so the cool thing about it is that it uses all the tools that are in the Microsoft BI stack. So that's SQL Server integration services, that's analysis services, that's MDX, multi-dimensional expressions, right? That's how you combine different pieces of data to make a metric like gross profit. It's all the stuff that currently exists in Visual Studio. But you know that, and instead of having to write the code using Visual Studio to write integration services code or analysis services code, all you do is we give you a GUI and you click a box. The code gets generated in the background, and I always like to say that it gets generated programmatically, and that means when you programmatically, which means that it gets generated by a machine, by a computer. It's perfect every time. It cuts out all those testing cycles. It doesn't change. And so let me give you a practical example. So Using traditional methods, which means if you want to use Visual Studio and you want to have a your integration services person, which is going to be different, by the way, from your analysis services person. There's not a lot of people who know both, which is going to be different from your MDX person. If you want to have them move data from your source system or one of your source systems into your data warehouse, this is your SSIS person. What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to write a SSIS transfer package. And I measured that once. That's about 8 inches of SQL code. And for those of you who don't have much experience with SQL code, it's awful. I mean, it's awful. It's all, words that don't make any sense, and it's commas and it's parentheses. And if one of those little commas or parentheses is out of place, and it's wrong, and the project fails, or the execution fails, and you have to redo it. First you have to find the problem, then you have to redo it. That's where a lot of the time consuming comes in. But even to write that code, let's say you wanted to put, you have a report that doesn't have zip code and you need to sort your data by zip code. If you want to put zip code from AX or from Dynamics Nav into your data warehouse, that's going to take somebody an hour to write the code to do that. With a data warehouse automation platform like Jets, you just click a box. Again, that code's generated in the background. The data gets moved. And then you're done. You go on to the next thing. And that's why I say we can actually sit with business users. Business user tells us, hey, we need zip code in there. Okay, hold on. Click. Is that right? Yes, it's right. And that lets developers, your BI developers, concentrate on the business and on the data model and on the data itself rather than on the gritty details of the implementation. Did we test that code? Who checked in the code? Is it tested? We don't have to worry about that anymore. You can worry about the data and what the users are telling you. And this is kind of where I start to get a little philosophical, because I've seen this happen when people start using our DWA platform. So by its very nature, it changes the way we work. It's kind of like true innovation should, right? It builds on itself. It changes our habits, kind of changes our way of thinking. It changes certainly the things that we focus on, right? Now we're focusing on business issues. We're not focusing on technology. And so then it changes productivity, and it starts to produce different, when I say different, I mean better results. So that's the theory. Here's how it works in practice. So in the DWA world, the technology part happens much faster, right? And again, that changes the way BI projects get built. So this requirements gathering exercise, it sort of changes into something different. And essentially, we come up with, we talk to end users, and we come up with a list of priorities, and we call these user stories. And we like to frame user stories by saying, okay, tell us, in my role, I need the following data presented in the following way for the following business reason. Right? That's a user story. So we go through, and that's easy for people to tell us because that's what they do all day. So we gather a big list of user stories. We call that the data warehouse backlog. And then we prioritize that list. And we look at priority number 1, and we time box it. We say, we think that's going to take us a day to produce that report or that set of data. Or we think it's going to take us 5 days, or we think it's going to take us an hour. And then once we get that first priority time box, we don't go off into a dark room and start writing code, because we don't have to. Right? That part is automated. What we do instead is we start delivering stuff. Priority number 1 first, and then number 2, and then number 3, and so on. And so we call these iterations, and we can start delivering BI products, so financial reports, sales dashboards, the AJR report that I was talking about, to the business in days. This is our deliver fast and deliver often approach. And it ensures that the BI solution is constantly aligned with the needs of the business. Because remember, we have the business users there talking to us, and we're constantly delivering stuff, and they're telling us, no, that's right, yes, that's it, no, that's wrong, yes, that's right. And the other thing I really like about this is that let's say we successfully develop priorities 1 through 5, and if for some reason we screw up on priority number 6, you know what? It doesn't affect the whole project, because we can just go off and we can fix number 6, and priorities number 1 through 5, they're delivered already. They're being used by the business. You can think of each one as kind of an independent event. All right. So, and this is, just kind of wrap this up, right? So time is saved. because technology, see, this is where the paradise comes in. Time is saved because technology allows us to do things differently. Risk, I always like to talk about risk. Risk gets mitigated because delivery of value, delivery of your BI artifacts happens fast and it happens often and it starts to build on itself because people start to get excited about it and the ideas get more creative. Shorter implementation times, it's faster delivery, it's easier maintenance. That means lower costs and a faster return on your project. So getting close to the end, what we have left are a couple of case studies. They're practical examples of how this worked. And I'm going to plug my next session, which is tomorrow. The one on Thursday is going to be all about software and how it actually works. Tomorrow, I'm going to have one of our clients with us. He's been live for about a year. And I'm going to bring him because I really liked the way that they picked our software. They kind of embodied all the things that I was talking about. And so I actually have the agenda in a later slide, but we're going to talk through everything from his software selection process all the way to what his roadmap is for further developing this out into the next years. And so it's going to be a really good conversation. A lot of good examples will come out of that. But let's take a look at what we have on the screen here. So this is one of our clients. We've had them for a couple of years. Big, huge manufacturing company. They've got millions of clients. They make snowmobiles and snow moving equipment. 500,000 item numbers, a bunch of different brands, and they keep buying. They're on a big acquisition tear. They keep buying companies. And they had all these challenges because they had to integrate all the data from all these new companies into their one ERP platform and into eventually one data warehouse. And they had hundreds of data consumers that all needed to see data in a bunch of different ways. I say different and extensive data needs, lots of departments. And so what we came up with is this is kind of here, let me just go to the takeaways here for Aaron. So obviously it was a monster project, and obviously they had an urgent need to understand their business. What were their clients doing? What were they buying? How about clients that haven't bought recently? How do we approach those? How do we stimulate new sales by what people have bought in the last 6 months? A giant inventory issue, and it's a manufacturing company, right? So all the things that go with manufacturing. What's the productivity of this workstation versus the other one? How are we doing our sourcing, and how does that affect our on-time delivery? Plus tons of acquisitions. I think they made 6 in 1 year in the years that we've been dealing with them. So that means constant change and shifting data needs. So a very complicated product. And I like this group because it was really the perfect example of what I'm always harping on, which is people, process, combined with technology. And so it's the technology. I'm going to start with the last one. The technology was important here because we simply could not have done this with a waterfall software development approach. There's no way. Right? We needed a software solution, RDWA solution, that enabled this deliver fast, deliver often approach. There's no way that you're going to make that many people happy if you have to go off into a dark room and start coding stuff for 6 months. And in this case, it would have been a year. People, right, it comes into play because both, I liked what happened, because both from the technical side and from the business side, they understood their problem, and they quickly saw the benefits of doing what we did, which is, hey, take a look at the data. Let's prototype up some reports really fast, and let's just tweak it until it's right. That worked perfectly for them. And then the process that we used was one that we do often, which is it's combined resources. So what that means is they did some of the work with the skills that they had on staff using our tools, and then we did some of the work. We did the stuff that we were best at, right? We each kind of did what made the most sense. And again, it's a result of having a tool, a piece of technology that's flexible and powerful enough to handle the complexity and the variability and the different ways that it made the most sense to work. This is my second and last case study. So these folks, they're kind of near and dear to my heart because what their architectural and engineering firm, and if you're not familiar with that industry, it's when you go to, say, a university campus or maybe a sports stadium or a big hospital campus, and you notice that, or a big office complex, and you know, the grass is really green and that fountain is cool. That's what architectural and engineering firms do. They lay those campuses out, and these folks are great, and they have some really high-profile clients, some of them here in Portland. And so what they are, though, at the end of the day, is they're a services business. They like to say, well, we sell hours and people. And it gets very complicated because they have these multi-year projects, that don't care about what your fiscal year is, and they don't care about how many people have worked on them, and they don't care about how many different vendors are there. They're just big, giant, honking projects. And they went live. They were live on AX for 6 months, and they had inadequate reporting. Somebody told me they hadn't seen an AR report in 6 months, and zero BI capability. And so that just means that they were pulling their hair out because they felt like they were missing opportunities. They didn't know what their project status was. They just, they couldn't, the truth be told, they couldn't really even agree on what the important metrics were to be able to look at because it was such a confused state. And so if you look at the solution, we were really proud of this. They had a board presentation coming in 6 months after we got together, and we gave them that board presentation. And we also integrated with SharePoint, and now we're ongoing, further defining, working with them ongoing, further defining their requirements and their reporting structures. And here's my takeaways. And this first bullet here, it's an interesting one. They're called what I like to call the Microsoft loop. And so they were an enterprise account for Microsoft. That means Microsoft comes in and sells to them directly. And Microsoft did so I have to put this a little delicately. So I love Microsoft's story when they come in. I've seen them come in and talk to potential clients. And they've got a great story, which is that you buy one of our Dynamics ERPs, and it's going to work with CRM. It's going to work with SharePoint. It's going to work with Link. It's going to work with your Windows phones. It's all your desktop apps that you Word and PowerPoint and Excel. It's all going to work perfectly together, and we have BI out of the box. Right? That is a great story. Right? I love that story. The problem is I think they've achieved it once. It's just so hard. It's just not quite ready for prime time yet. And I'm speaking very frankly, but I've seen it too many times to not just tell the truth about it. The business team, they needed to deliver on promises. I mentioned they had some unclear needs, and the landscape was shifting, pun intended, on landscape. And what we were able to do was deliver those results immediately with ongoing success. And this is a great example of deliver fast, deliver often approach. And I kind of picked this one because it was different from the manufacturing company, not in terms of its success, but in the terms of the way that we achieved it, right? So what we went in is that we went into these folks. We knew we had 3 weeks to deliver a board level presentation, board level reporting anyway, and we did some very light requirements gathering. We did not spend a lot of time there. So they had only a rough idea of what they needed to look at, their KPIs and their metrics, but they didn't know best how to combine their data to produce those metrics. They didn't know where the data was. They didn't know which pieces of the data were validated or not. So we spent most of our time just prototyping until things were correct. We sat in a room for 3 days, and we started building stuff, and we put it up on the screen. We said, is that right? Is this right? And we ended up changing around a lot of things. They decided that some of the KPIs that they thought that they needed didn't work for one reason or another, and we were able to be very nimble and move around their database and pull the data together that was needed to get them some really exciting looking reports for their board meeting. And you can imagine what a thrill it was for those guys to show up at that meeting with accurate numbers that no one had been able to produce before. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so those are my 2 examples. Here's my wrap up. Here's the other thing that I learned in my presentation skills class is you should put pictures of your kids. Kids always win, apparently, right? And so that's one of my kids, my daughter. And so here's my wrap up. So software is great. Look, we love software. I love software. But don't let it fool you, right? Ask the right questions around it. Success in BI hinges on strong organizational fundamentals, right? And there's no way around that. Communication, vision, project management, success criteria. And then, again, if you come to my next 2 sessions, Wednesday and Thursday, data warehouse automation changes the way that business intelligence is delivered. And I hope you join me for these sessions. You're going to see more examples of how that works and practical examples as well. So, Jason, I'm done. I hope that was good enough. went a little longer than I expected. I'll also say this: the next 2 sessions are going to be a little quicker because that's 3 sessions in a row. You don't want to hear me talk for that long. Nobody does, not even my wife. So these sessions should be about 30 minutes or so.
Thanks, John. A lot of the folks on the line, I think, are signed up probably for tomorrow's and Thursday's sessions. But if you're not, check out the msdynamicsworld.com event section. You'll see those listed as coming up in the next couple of days. Well, John, thanks so much. Great session. We would like to take questions. If anyone has any, you can use that Q&A block down in the lower right to ask your questions, share your experiences with some of the challenges and considerations that John mentioned today. Let's see here. So, John, one person asking if you're willing to share any more of any of the materials mentioned today or presented today. Is there a way people might be able to get access to those?
Yes, there is. So I've got. So I'm sort of our technical writer for our company, and so I have a bunch of white papers, and I have a video of philosophical talks that I've done, and I've got a ton of source material. So you can. I don't have a. There it is. I do have an email on this. If you want to reach out to me and tell me kind of what it is that you're interested in, then I can send you any of that stuff, the stuff I've written or the white papers. You can also go to our website, which is jetreports.com, and you'll find some of that stuff there. It's I'm telling you, probably your best bet for getting it quick is to email me.
All right. One question here. How often can we expect a data warehouse to need to be replaced?
Oh, boy. Well, replaced is different from changed. So it should really never have to be replaced. But changed is a different story. And, so some people hear me give this talk and they ask that question because it scares them. Like, oh, my goodness, I'm going to have to, I'm constantly working on this thing and it's going to cost me money constantly, right? And so you can go, there's two ends, there's two sides to that story. You can be like one of the examples that I mentioned, and you're constantly changing that data warehouse. Pretty much every week, you're changing that thing. Or you can go another route and just say, okay, we as a company have gotten together and we have defined the data set that we care about, and we have defined that, and that's going to, and we, for various reasons, do not want that to change very much. So it is still going to change, but it can go into what I like to call a low-cost maintenance mode, where there's not wholesale changes, and that usually reflects the business because you're not acquiring companies or adding a bunch of new products. So it's kind of a long-winded way to saying it depends, right? I mean, if you have a super active business or you're just developing BI for the first time, it's going to change a lot. You have to be honest. And the good news, though, is that with the proper piece of technology, with data warehouse automation, that those changes aren't going to kill you in time or in money.
All right. I see we're nearly at the top of the hour here, but one last question. Best approach, can you recommend an approach for building BI, and is it better to go internally or outside of the organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it depends, so again, it depends, right? Sorry to have to say that again, but it depends on the skills that you have on staff. And so SQL skills are not so rare, right? And now, Visual Studio skills are not so rare. We can teach you our software. We have a few different classes on this, and we can teach you our software in about 12 hours. People become proficient on it, right? So that's all fine. All those skills kind of exist, so they can be learned pretty quickly. The part about business intelligence that is hard to learn is dimensional modeling. And dimensional modeling is a fancy word for how are we going to put your data together. So how are we going to put it together, A, so that it makes sense to the business users, and B, so that it works in an OLAP structure. And that's a much more rare skill because it combines a couple of different separate skills. It requires that SQL knowledge that you need to have, and it requires knowledge of the business, and it requires somebody who can interface well with other people. And those, our experience has been that those are kind of rare skills. So what happens is, a funny statistic, this is not an official statistic, but a funny statistic is that 90% of the people come to us and say, we want to build this ourselves. We want a tool where we can be self-sufficient. And 90% of those people just don't have the skills on staff, right? And so you might be one of the lucky ones who can actually do it, but my recommendation is usually that you are good at your business and that's what you do, and there are other people out there who know how to use a DWA platform, and that's what they do all day long. So if you want it done quicker and faster with the most effect, then in most cases have somebody else do it. Again, the good news is that it is 5 times, and we benchmarked this is an official statistic, 5 times faster using a DWA tool than it is in any other traditional method. So again, you're not going to get killed on time or money.
All right, thanks, John. Well, that ends our question queue, and we are at the top of the hour here, so let's start wrapping up. John, thanks so much for presenting today.
Okay, well, you are more than welcome. I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, everyone in the audience, thanks again. Please do look out for a survey as you close out of the session. We really appreciate your input. It's just about a 30-second questionnaire. And we hope to see you tomorrow and Thursday at the rest of the series. So thanks and have a great day.